Yeah, you got the 2 years of funding it's worth about $8 million. That's a great video. You know, record
people ask, where's the next book? And I'm like, what the fuck am I going to come up with that we're not already doing on a day-to-day basis? Did you... Kelly's screen on this.
It's a beautiful Photoshop I found of an X-Wing crashed on a 1940s era World War II aircraft carrier. They've taken one of the Navy photos of a plane that crashed and photoshopped the X-Wing on it perfectly with people trying to pull it off and working on it and everything. And they left the caption from the Naval Department of what it was and where it was, like June 1946 or something like that. I'm going, that's beautiful.
Battle of Bunker Hill.
That's a book in and of itself.
Huh?
That's a book in and of itself.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. They kind of made a movie like that. It was called The Final Countdown.
Yeah.
Boy, that sucked.
Damn, they're gonna let the Jets
I was starting to go back to those.
I love that movie.
Oh yeah.
Do you know what
that movie was awesome?
Do you know what The Final Countdown created? The Toxic Avenger.
I can see that.
No, because Lloyd Kaufman, that was the last major feature he worked on, and he was so disgusted with the entire Hollywood process, he said, I'm going to make my own studio and make the kind of movies I want to make. So we got Trauma Films out of The Final Countdown.
Gee, Trauma.
Yeah, and we also got one of the worst songs ever recorded that won't go away. Exactly.
You feet liberal, you.
Don't hate the player, hate the game.
I can hate both.
All right.
Well, there was a bumper sticker I saw the other day, hate hurts. I'm like, yeah, other people.
Getting a massage the other day. Lady's like going, you seem kind of stressed. I said, no, I'm a carrier. All right, this is the result of years of convention programming people realizing that it was generally a mistake to put John and I on a panel with anybody else. Because it invariably meant that there were 2 or 3 other people on the panel that were kind of sitting there going,
I kind of like to try you, me, and Jerry Pornell.
No, you don't want that, because I would turn to him and go, so Dr. Pornell, how do you feel about the current administration of NASA? I did that to him once. I actually did that, but Uncle Timmy had Larry and Jerry at LibertyCon years ago. I said that to him and walked away, and Timmy was like, that's the only time I think I've ever seen him mad.
There was a panel that I did with him, and he is on some blood pressure medication that causes him to be even a little less aware of his surroundings than he normally is. And at one point, I just thought about going, Jerry, you ignorant slut.
Which would have made Larry laugh. You want to know how nice Larry Niven is? He's put up with Jerry for 40 years.
He gives me candy.
And he gives Miriam candy.
He gives Miriam candy.
That's Uncle Larry.
No, Santa.
Santa Larry.
Little Santa. I call him Little Santa.
So what are we doing?
All right. This is the appropriately named John and Kelly Traveling Roadshow because it seemed to fit the program book.
But we don't have plates of food in front of us.
Oh yes.
Really?
You missed the meat. You missed my mighty meat. We had mighty meat at the house, and you missed my mighty meat.
Because when I get the text driving home the other day, going, we pulled out the grill, come on over. I'm like, I work in the morning. I'm getting up when you're thinking about going to bed.
I knew that, but I was just letting you know when.
I work when the day star is in the sky.
The day star, the day star is evil. We have, Miriam and I and Kelly and Star have some friends that we imported. They also, because they're workaholic junkies about labor, which is, anathema to me, they're not only good friends, they also do my lawn.
They do
So I
my
say,
lawn.
so bite me. So I say that I imported Texicans. But the first time they were living in Chattanooga, at one point, Bullitt wanted to do a cookout. And he'd been wanting to do a cookout, but he couldn't find any steaks. And I'm like, everybody's got steaks. He says, no, I can't find any steaks. So he says, hey, I found steaks. Let's have a cookout. So we go over to his house, and he has these sirloin roasts that are about like this. And I go, what are those? He goes, steaks. It said roast on the package. I don't know why. These are Texas steaks, right? It's steaks. We call these, in Texas, we call these steaks. So I decided to, have a cookout at my house, and so the Texicans would feel at home. I got Texas steaks. 18 pounds of meat we had, and you missed it.
Sorry,
Perfectly grilled.
American Idol was on.
Greg came though, and Taipan came. Taipan came right in the house. He did great.
Taipan had a great time.
Taipan's a great dog.
Yeah.
Very polite.
So anyway, continue.
All right, so basically, what we figured is that it would just be easier for all involved to put John and I on a panel, and the program people. But what's the topic? Doesn't really matter. We don't really need a topic. We are the guys that hold court, so we put us together. Now, just to lay down a little bit of background here, okay? John is the world-famous, big-name science fiction writer. He actually has legitimate reasons to be invited to conventions. I am the Paris Hilton of family. I am famous for being famous, and we don't talk about the video. But over the years, John and I got to know each other pretty well. A lot in common, share a lot of the same interests. And basically the end result of all of this is that I'm now his landlord. And when we told people...
Squire.
Yes. When we told people this at Ravencon last year, when John said, yeah, I'm moving into Kelly's house, I think half the people didn't believe
Thought it was
us.
a joke, yeah.
They're like, oh, it's just another
We're
one of the jokes.
we're always coming up with something crazy.
Yeah, the making of Ghost.
The original was great.
Yeah, I've adapted so far 3 of John's books, and we thought it'd be really great to adapt these to screenplays and thinking that, oh, Hollywood will love this. And then there's this little thing called the Great Recession hit.
Yeah.
And all the money dried up.
Yep.
Well, but, we still have the making of Ghost out there somewhere. One of these days we'll see the video.
I'll send you the link. It's done, but since I don't...
It's done, but...
Well, since I don't have a...
years.
It's been... Kelly, I gave you the DVD to give to him last year.
It's the Phantom Menace.
There you go.
Yes.
I'll send you the link.
Right. John and I have had a lot of very long, late-night conversations back before morning radio, when I could stay up late at night with long rambling, trying to solve the problems of the world and figure out if it is actually illegal to kill a liberal.
No.
Are they in season?
Yeah, only in season.
They are against the death penalty, so.
One of the questions, though, one of the topics that came up, John had some really good insight into this. Bane's been doing a lot of reprints of, great authors back in the 50s and 60s. I've been reading the Bertram Chandler grind stuff right now. It's fantastic stuff. I haven't read this since I was a kid.
Yeah, that's good.
And yeah, I mean, these great books back in just particularly like in the 60s. And they're these sprawling epics with these, huge stories and all this big stuff. And I'm reading this stuff and I'm really liking it, and I'm looking at a lot of stuff being published now, and I'm going, this is not my stuff. And then, of course, John comes out with Citadel, and it's like, once again, big, huge, Cheops was,
Think big.
Really think big stuff. And I was like,
Cheops was insufficiently ambitious.
Right. And I'm saying, this is the stuff that I grew up reading, the stuff that you're writing now. How come nobody else is writing this? And he said something that made me go, oh. And what you said was, because Americans stopped thinking big.
No, what I said was Americans stop believing.
Stop believing in it.
Doc Travis has recently written a book called The Science Behind the Secret. And one of the things that he talks about is that the universe potentially and apparently is changed by concentrated thought and belief. And if you take a look at the United States, if you back away from the United States and you look at the United States, our belief in success, qua success, has faded. One of the things that got me was watching some shows, some of these Build It Bigger. Anybody ever watch Build It Bigger? It's about building these great big buildings, great big ships. You notice that nothing's ever in the United States. Okay, it's always in China, it's always in Malaysia, it's always in Dubai. It's not just that the money is there, it's that the belief is there. You take a look at the skyline of Hong Kong, Shanghai, and you compare it to, you know, the crowning jewel of skylines of the United States, New York City. New York City looks tawdry in comparison. It just looks, it looks old and weak and tired.
50% of the construction cranes in the world are in Dubai. That's a truth. When you look at Shanghai, Hong Kong, many of the Chinese cities that are literally growing, I mean, you can almost visually see them grow. That's where all the construction's going. It's not happening in the United States. When's the last time the United States built a major dam? We haven't dammed all our rivers. Well, when's the last time we built?
We can still dam the Mississippi. Chinese proved it with the Three Gorges Dam.
Do you know why concrete got so expensive about 5 years ago? It's because the Chinese were using all of it.
And all the materials.
Yes,
Just like
I mean,
copper.
they were using steel. A friend of mine works in the steel business, and he sells, basically his job is to sell scrap steel. And when the Chinese were buying up every scrap of steel they could get their hands on, he was selling scrap steel for what a year earlier he was selling high quality stainless for. Because there was such a demand on it, because the Chinese are a emerging, developing economy, and they're still thinking big. Really
So one of
big.
the reasons that you haven't seen science fiction that thinks big is because you haven't seen science fiction coming out of those economies. And it's not necessary for the U.S. to think small. You know, I am still a person who, you know, thinks that, knows that if we're going to advance, if we're going to keep up, if we're going to succeed, it's more than we need to fix our education system, or, you know, we need to fix this, we need to fix that. We've got to work on our conservative-liberal divide. The first and foremost thing is that we have to believe. Belief in and of itself has an effect. Positive thinking cannot change every reality. It doesn't matter how positive you think. If you're falling off of Half Dome, you're not going to defeat gravity. But if every thinking being in the universe thought that you were not going to be killed in the fall, I guarantee you would survive. Concentrated thought, concentrated belief can affect reality. Depends on the mass of reality versus the amount of belief. And, you know, when America thought that it could succeed, it could succeed. You take a look at the Apollo program, okay?
Which my father worked on.
The Apollo program was impossible. Now, there's a lot of reasons that it became possible. One of them is that at the last minute, when it looked like we weren't going to make the 10-year deadline, they threw just an enormous number of people into it. Just, you know, they basically threw bodies at the problem until they fixed the problems. But I guarantee you that one of the reasons that the Apollo program succeeded was because we believed it could succeed.
My father was a tech rep for IBM to the manned space program. That's what he did when he got out of the Air Force. The IBM was basically waiting and going, here, you know, here's your black tie, your black suit, and here's your briefcase. Now go to work. That's what IBM did back then. They would get all these Air Force officers who were coming out and saying, you're going to go work for us. And he went to work as a tech rep. And so he was there. I mean, he was there for every launch. He was there in Houston, and like that. And he is firmly convinced that, looking back on it, We should not have been able to do it.
We didn't have the technology.
We did not have the
Those
technology.
Saturns-
We were insanely taking enormous risks that were guaranteed to fail, except every single person involved, from the astronauts down to the lowliest technician, all believed we were going to do this.
Those Saturns were not lifted into the sky just by kerosene and oxygen. They were lifted into the sky by the concentrated belief of the American people that we could not fail.
You know, and when you look at all the major things that were made in this country, that was the era when they were being made.
Yeah, and it's possible that a civilization only has one such era. You take a look at most civilizations, and they're golden ages. And it might be that our golden ages have faded, and that we're in the lovely long Kentucky afternoon. You know, and that's fine. But I really think that it's possible to kick back up through concentration. But
And I think
the problem is that you have to actually believe in that, and you have to have enough people believing in it.
part of it is also the inherent strength of the American people. How many people have traveled abroad in here? Okay, good, a very good number. You all realize how fucking weird we are to the rest of the world.
Oh, we are
Yes.
very fucking weird.
Okay,
I have an excuse.
we confuse the hell out of the rest of the world because we are so incredibly different in the way we think, the way we believe, and the way we behave. It is indoctrinated into us because of how this country was founded and developed. The rest of the world doesn't get us.
I was talking with I just had a week with my daughters, or part of a week with my daughters, and I've got to drive down I've got to do about a 3-hour drive down to pick them up, and then 3 hours back to Chattanooga. And those 3-hour drives are some of our best times because we do something that most parents with teenagers don't do. We talk. And pretty much we talk for 3 hours. And it's not just Daddy talking, although Daddy does a lot of the talking. You know, he gets feedback. But one of the things that we were talking about, I won't get into the actual topics of this one, but one of the things was about the different attitudes about sex and the body, and how internationally, how completely, we look at other societies and we go, oh, those societies are weird. No, almost every society on earth has certain attitudes towards sex and the body and everything else that are more internationally normal, whereas the United States,
Very Puritan.
we think within fandom, we think of ourselves as open-minded, okay? And in general, there's all these little subcultures of fandom that gets into all sorts of sexual stuff. No, hell no. I was a young teen in Europe, okay? Frolicon? I don't go to Frolicon because I've been to Greece during the summer. All right? And let me tell you, Frolicon does not have a lot of hot Swedish chicks. All right?
Anybody ever been to FenCon over in Germany? It's what I call Germany's Dragon Con.
No.
Okay? Yeah, FenCon this is a mainstream science fiction convention in Germany. It's really like Dragon Con. It has a lot of the same guests, and it's very much like that. Kind of multi-genre. Oh, just as a side note, Stormtroopers speaking German is perfect. Perfect. Perfect.
Except they're led by a black man.
Wait, hold on a second. Okay, this is going to be, we're going to do tangents all the way there. When they did the Star Wars re-releases, okay, big deal, right? And pretty much in every city where they did the releases, they would find the local chapter of the 501st to do the big opening night premiere because everybody wants Stormtroopers, right? They premiered the film in Paris. They got the Parisian 501st contingent to show up for the premiere.
All right.
So it was in the papers. The Associated Press sent out the story with the photo of the Stormtroopers, and there it is, the Arc de Triomphe in the background. And the caption was, "Stormtroopers invade Paris."
They immediately surrendered.
15 minutes later, I work for an AP affiliate, we got an apology notice from the Associated Press retracting the headline.
Le Monde had the same headline.
Right, they fired the headline writer.
Yeah, Le Monde
Who
had
put
the
it
same
probably
headline.
on top on his resume.
Yeah, bro.
You know, this fired from the AP for using this headline. I would have hired him. Because that guy clanks when he walks. It's like, this is not a repeat from 1940. Yeah, but it was, okay, but anyway, FenCon is what we would consider a standard multi-genre convention. If anybody that went to Phantasm or Frolicon or any of the fetish cons went there, they would feel vanilla.
Yeah.
Okay, I mean, you know, at DragonCon you get the cutesy girls to the stormtroopers going, "Oh, how hard is it to get the codpiece off?" Over there, they just go, "Nice." You know, the kilt checks at DragonCon when Jenny Breeden comes by with her, leaf blower.
Yeah.
You know, in Germany they show her how to use the leaf blower.
Yeah, it's going the wrong way.
Yeah, exactly.
So
yeah, but you're right.
I was talking with the girls.
Sexual mores.
I was talking with the girls, and you know, I said, "Okay, girls, what would you think about going to a nude beach?" And they're like, "Oh, I wouldn't feel real comfortable." Well, you go to Europe and you go to the beaches and you see, you know, the middle-aged dad and the slightly younger wife, and the teenage daughter, and the 11-year-old son, and the 8-year-old daughter. They're all starkers and not thinking anything about it. You know, there's no with Argentinians. You get it with get it with everybody.
But here's the thing: I believe that is our greatest strength.
True,
because we are to the rest of the world. We're basically insane.
We are aliens to the rest of the world.
But it's because it has been ingrained in us from birth, in all of our history books, the way we're taught, the way we're educated, what we just absorb through our media, is that anything is possible. You know, all of our successes were people that just said, you know, "Oh, I'm going to build a website so people can share photos." The end result is several $billion of income and something called Facebook.
Yeah.
Which, by the way, last week just hit a benchmark. 50% of the American population over the age of 12 now has a Facebook account. Think about that for a second.
Holy cow!
Yeah!
Holy cow!
Is that including the people who have 20 Facebook accounts?
No,
19 of them are spammers.
My 100-year-old grandmother has a Facebook account.
Okay, I mean, I only have 2 Facebook accounts. I have mine and my cat has mine. Who has almost 700 friends. The average on Facebook is 150. The fact that my cat has like 650 friends really depresses the ones that only have 150, by the way.
Alexander Tocqueville?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Back in the early 1800s, came over to the United States. He was a French philosopher. He came over to the United States to study America and see what was this new country, what was going on with it, and etc. And he wrote a book called Democracy in America, which is one of those things that everyone should read. Democracy in America should be required 8th grade reading with requirement to do lots and lots of essays. And people say, "Oh, you know, it's dead white guys." But we really, a lot of the essentials of America haven't changed. And one of the things that he said that's very important is that America's strength is the balance between and the battle between the secular, the radical secularists and the radical religionists. That is America's strength. I obviously am not a liberal. Anybody who's read my stuff, I am not what you would call a modern Obama voter liberal. But, however, I recognize that the fundamental aspect of liberalism, which unfortunately a lot of modern liberals have lost and forgotten, is what being a liberal really means is not, do you believe in Marxism? It does not mean, are you an atheist? It is the ability to reject the box. Now, I'm a conservative, okay? The box is there for a reason. I like the box. I'm good with the box. My writing is inside the box. Right. It's very classic. It's kind of stuff that if the technology was different, you should have seen in 1950s science fiction. That's the way that I write. Okay? But I recognize that the thing about thinking outside of the box is that 99% of what you come up with outside of the box sucks. Okay? Zeno's paradox is idiotic. All right, there's just lots of stuff out there. Most of it you haven't heard of historically. There's lots of, Sturgeon's law. There's lots of crap. You just look on the internet. There's a lot of stupid ideas out there. But thinking outside of the box, you come up with that one idea, like, hey, let's figure out a way for people to share pictures, and you get Facebook. You think outside of the box. Hey, let's figure out a system that can survive. Communications can survive in a nuclear war, and you get Facebook. Okay, okay. That was the internet. It was a system designed to survive nuclear war.
Okay, I want to make money. I have no real artistic skill, but I'm pretty good at marketing. So I'm going to get a river rock. I'm going to get some, packing clutter, and I'm going to put it in a box, and I'm going to write the care and feeding of a pet rock.
I still have mine.
I'm going to sell millions of these things.
But that's
because I'm marketing. Who would say, oh, yeah, a pet rock, yeah, that'll work. Rest of the world never would have happened. In America,
I can see it happening in Japan.
And it would be in a vending machine.
There's our USB.
Japan became us.
They have a USB controller.
Japan, yeah, I've had a USB port on
it. But they do have them. It's a big hit right now. They're USB pet rocks.
That is the thing. They're saying, if you want to know what our technological fads will be 10 years from now, go to Tokyo now.
Yeah, right. But the thing...
Pennies and vending machines?
But it's that balance between the two. And unfortunately, right now, it seems like that to tell you the truth, what's failing, conservatives continuously feel under fire. Okay? But that is because, for a lot of reasons, liberals have a tendency to be better at media. But the truth is that, if anything, it's the liberal side which is failing, at least failing in its most fundamental utility, which is to be able to throw out all convention.
Utterly question the status quo.
Utterly question the status quo. Now, that might even be changing. There was a conference about 6 months ago. It was a conference of sociology psychologists or something like that. And this one guy is presenting a paper, and he gets up there and he says, before I present this paper, I'm going to give an anecdotal example of the basis of the paper. And there were about 800 people in the audience. And he said, how many people in this audience would classify themselves as political liberals? Sea of hands. He says, how many would classify themselves as political libertarians? And about 15 people raised their hands. How many conservatives? 3. 800 people, 3 conservatives. He said, our specialty is looking at societies and looking at how they structure themselves psychologically. And if we saw this with any other aspect, if it were race, creed, sexual orientation, gender, our immediate response would be, this is not just a prejudiced society, it is a massively prejudiced society.
That went over as well.
Actually, they kind of, there was this kind of.
Oh yeah, you kind of got a point there.
But that was their field. I mean, if it was a physicist, who was looking at a ball dropping, he knows Newtonian physics. It really is. I mean, it was the core of their field. you know, if it's a doctor and, you know, a person's dying of a known disease, I mean, they understood right away what he was saying, and they kind of looked around and they went, and of course this is the hemming and the hawing, well, you know, this field doesn't draw conservatives, but he says, no, you hear that with every other form of prejudice. Every excuse you are about to make, it has been our job of our field to strike those excuses down, and yet there are 3 conservatives in this audience.
We're going to do the reverse on that. How many people identify themselves as political conservative in this room? Show of hands. Okay. Political libertarian. Right? Political liberal. 1, 2. 2 hands. Okay? Now, if people could say, well, it's because science fiction doesn't really attract... Bullshit. Some of the greatest liberal minds have been science fiction writers.
Right, but these are... Ringo fans. Face it, Kelly, most of these people are John Ringo fans. You may think you're famous, but they're mostly here.
No, they're here because of your name, right?
Yeah.
That's why it's the John and Kelly Traveling Roadshow, not the Kelly or Jerry and John Traveling Roadshow. Yeah. I am more famous than you at home.
Yes.
True, absolutely. He has billboards, as if his ego wasn't big enough. I don't even know how that fucking hat fits anymore.
It's very stretchy. It's very stretchy.
Buy one
Until you break my hat. All right, go back to SeaWorld. Oh, I got this hat at SeaWorld. Disney has trees. Disney has shade. SeaWorld does not. Disney's better engineered. Okay? But, you know, yes, they're Ringo fans. But here's the difference. For that group, it was kind of a oh moment. This group knows why there's not many liberals here. We're not turning a blind eye to. We know that most liberals are probably afraid to read the kind of stuff that John writes. It's not what they want to read.
I wouldn't say so much fear. I don't read Harlan Ellison because I've got better uses of my time. You know, I don't really think of it in terms of fear. It may be, to a certain extent, disgust. And I recognize that. I mean, I recognize that I cause visceral reactions. That's a good thing if it's the kind of stuff that you like. You know, again, I keep harping on this one particular series, but it's because it's a series that stands out. Ghost. You either like Ghost or you don't. I don't know anybody who's just, you know, they're like, yeah, I read it, big deal. Okay? Actually, I did get that from a couple of Europeans.
Oh, what do you know? 40,000 words of deep sea diving and bondage porn.
But
the second half of, come on, seriously, that was the second half of Ghost. Okay?
The old, or you know, Hemingway doing The Old Man and the Two Co-eds.
The one book John has not let his girls read yet.
But I have absolutely no idea where we were going with that.
Oh, we're talking, but the thing, the overarching point that I'm making here is that, okay, if you look at the United States right now, let's be honest, we appear to be a power on decline. Okay, we have had our golden age. We have had the extent of our empire. You know, we've reached the heights the Romans and so forth have had, and now we're on the decline. Now, it does not appear to be a fast decline. However, because...
And it won't be a crash by any stretch of the imagination.
But because of who we are, though, and this is, I think, the major change of all empires that have come before us in this world, because of who we are, so fundamentally different, I am of the belief that that decline can be changed. Okay? Because, first of all, why are we still the #1 military superpower? It's very simple, because we're about 40 years ahead of everybody else militarily.
There's another reason that we're one of the military superpowers, and it goes back to Tocqueville again. One of the reasons that our religious, you know, strong religious basis, and I understand that most people in this room don't think of themselves in terms of Christian right. I understand that. But most people in this room, to a certain extent, derive certain philosophies from that. The concept of self-sacrifice. The concept of America as the ultimate tribe. That America is our tribe, and we will sacrifice for the tribe. And that is one of the strong aspects of our military, that it can draw upon this enormous well of reasonably well-educated, let's not get into the education system, reasonably well-educated, and definitely potentially intelligent. In some cases, you know, the military runs across that occasional nugget, which is, you know, the person who's had like no education, but they've got this, you know, they've got the strong loyalty to the U.S., and it turns out the enormous IQ that if you just fertilize it a little bit, all of a sudden you've got this enormous tree jump up. But we can draw upon so much of that. You know, that's one of the strengths of our military.
And also, though, you know where we are, and no civilization before us when it comes to imperial reach. The United States is not an imperial country.
Cultural reach.
Culturally,
oh my God.
We dominate the world culture. I was interviewing a Fox News reporter, Courtney Keeley, who's based out of the Middle East. She's been there for about 20 years. She had just gotten out of Benghazi while cruise missiles were landing, okay? This was a fascinating interview. She'd gotten into Cairo. Really, you know, she and her team got out by the skin of her teeth. But we were talking on there, and she was explaining the inside, which I don't get into, that this is actually a youth revolution that's happening in that area. But she just casually, during the course of the interview, mentioned that when she was teaching high school in Lebanon 15 years ago, these are the kind of people that end up working for the major networks, by the way,
yeah.
that she had some students come in and they were listening to some local Lebanese rap music that was sampling Rapper's Delight. Okay? And she pointed out to them, because, oh, that's Rapper's Delight. I remember listening to that when I was a kid. And they start talking about this thing. Hip-hop is dominating the youth culture of the world.
And death metal.
Death metal.
Lebanese death metal is actually pretty goddamn good.
Yeah,
if for no other reason than death metal really needs you to come out of an angsty background. And there is no more angsty background than being a teenager in Lebanon, trust me.
No, but it's the cultural. They watch our movies. They watch our TV shows. They listen to our music. We are the ultimate imperial power when it comes to cultural. And this has a reaction, because what has happened in North Africa and the Middle East is you have a population that 60% of the population is under the age of 30. 60%. They are not accepting the status quo of their elders because they've grown up with hip-hop, Baywatch, Avatar, but more importantly, cell phones and the internet. And they have seen firsthand through YouTube not only what we have that they want, but more importantly, the subtext of how we view the Middle East and North Africa. And they're saying no.
I tell you what, we need to get an Arabic translation of Red Dawn and somehow get it onto all those cell phones.
But seriously, this is what's.
Can you imagine a bunch of jihadis and kafiyas running around going, Wolverines?
Okay, you lived in Iran when you were young. What's the equivalent of a Wolverine in Iran? What's the animal out there? They
killed them all off thousands of years ago. The closest you get is maybe some sort of weasel.
Weasel!
Leopards.
Leopard, yeah, they'd be the leopards.
Yeah. Real quick, okay, think about previously dominant empires and cultures. Okay, Rome, all right? You never saw Chinese peasants wearing togas. Okay, Chinese peasants didn't wear togas. Chinese peasants wear jeans and t-shirts. That fashion.
Oh, God.
Yeah, there was a... Okay, I've got to get a little politically incorrect here.
Why do you think we came?
One of the things you find with victors in any war, and it doesn't matter if it's a physical war or a cultural war, is that the women go to the winners. Which was one of the reasons, besides the economic drivers, it was one of the reasons that after the fall of the Soviet Union, blonde Russian, if you say blonde Russian, you know that the next word is whore. Okay? It was not just an economic aspect, it was that the West were the winners, and the women go to the winners.
They dress like the winners, they act like the winners.
They date the men of the winners. After we conquered in Germany, there was an anti-fraternization ban, and yeah, there was, the girls wanted, the nylons and the chocolates, and you hear about this, if you talk with the parents and grandparents that will talk to you about it, and you know about this. But another part was that Americans were the winners, and this is something which transports across cultures, across time. It's not just that the men would rape, it is that the women would go to the winners repeatedly. Well, that's sort of like after you've won, that. And to a certain extent with cultural wars, which direction the women are going in. During the 1970s, you saw a lot of American women who were dating Japanese and, were marrying or dating or becoming prostitutes to Japanese and Arabs. The Arab, Saudi, American women marrying Saudi guys. You don't see that so much anymore. You see it a little bit, but it's not as strong as it was during the 1970s. During the 1970s, America seems like it was failing. The Arabs were coming up. The women were going to the winners. But you also see it in fashion. In Iraq, during the height of the worst of Iraq, around 2005, 2006, a lot of the Iraqi teenagers were dressing in the keffiyehs and going more towards traditional dress. By 2008, when it was clear that the insurgency was functionally over, they lost. They were wearing jeans and t-shirts, and they were wearing their sunglasses backwards on their necks. They got sunglasses because they never wore sunglasses, just to wear them on the backs of their necks. They wanted to look like the winners. So fashion tells you a lot about cultural penetration and cultural dominance. We don't dress in African dress. It's perfectly comfortable. I've got it in the gym. Okay? There's no reason not to wear that kind of clothing.
Look at the one part of Middle Eastern African dress that the military has adopted.
The scarf.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because it's entirely functional.
It's absolutely functional.
But we've adapted that. But to the point now, when you look at any photos of troops in the sandbox, most of them are wearing it. But we've now made it ours. This is the other great strength of America.
Which is
we co-opt.
We co-opt anything that's good. I mean, who is the person in here who's wearing the T-shirt about English?
Yeah, English doesn't borrow from other languages.
Doesn't borrow words from other languages. It follows them into dark alleys, hits them over their heads, and goes to their pockets for loose grammar.
I love it.
Now, American culture does the same thing to other cultures. This is something that people like Anthony Bourdain will bitch about all the time. Okay, that American culture will take something that in another culture is quaint, fascinating, wonderful, and just fuck it over. Right? Pizza.
Karaoke.
There was a.
No, there are Taco Bells in Mexico City.
Yes. No. Even better. In the 1970s, when Benihanas was spreading throughout the United States, and a lot more Japanese businessmen were coming to the United States. Well, to give them a taste of home, their local hosts would take them to a Benihana's.
That is not Japanese.
That's not Japanese at all. It's not even close, right?
It's a great restaurant in Tokyo, though.
But then Benihana's got so popular with the Japanese that were coming to America that they opened one in Japan. And now it's a popular motif in Japan. We are like the virus of culture. Okay?
But that is why I firmly believe that while we may be on the decline in certain areas, we're still...
And part of it is not decline. I know that I started with the word decline.
It's like the 70s is when we stepped back, took our breath, regathered, and then surged forth again. It's almost like a boxing match where every so often we'll lose a round. Then we'll go back to the corner, get the cup man, maybe spit out some water and say, all right, next round.
That's part of it. Another part of it is that we feel a little bit like it's declined because countries that had the bases to be where we're at are just now starting to catch up. There was a really interesting YouTube that I saw that I had some problems with. It was a Dutch sociologist, or actually I don't know what exactly he was. He just talked about how he puts things together and makes very, very complicated concepts easy visually. And it's a really fascinating, I can't remember a damn thing about it, or I tell you, what the link was.
The Gapminder is the software that he uses. This is the charts with the bubbles that...
Yeah,
Gapminder.
but basically he had all the different countries in the world, and he went back from 200 years back, and he showed how as lifespan increases, as income increases, lifespan increases. Although one of the things he didn't point out is that it goes both ways. As lifespan increases, individual income increases. But
it's kind of symbiotic.
Yeah, it's symbiotic. But what he was showing was that the Western countries, surged ahead in lifespan and income, and that all the developing countries were, as he put it, the colonized countries, were oppressed and held back, and now they're starting to catch up. And there's a certain aspect to that, but the flip side was if he'd gone back 2,000 years, China, for example, would have been way the hell up here, and Western Europe would have been way the hell down there. We just passed them. We skyrocketed past them. And now they're climbing up, and, they got 1 billion people. The thing is, the United States, one of the things that I'm thinking about writing about, new series, is a post-apocalyptic, or the apocalypse. But one of the things that one of the points that the main character would make is that if everyone had the skill set and everyone was in place, the United States at low-tech agriculture could support 300 million people.
Yes.
We could support
We're a
300 million
physically
people.
large country, but a population-wise, no.
Huh?
We're not a population-wise for our size of our land, no.
China, with actually, you see all these wonderful views of China. A good bit of China is much worse deserts than we have.
Yeah.
China supported 250 million prior to modern technology. Okay, so, we could easily support that many people. The United States, with modern technology, can support something like 2.5 billion people. Okay, not comfortable. Okay, we'd have to look and act like the Chinese, but we could do it. So there was a point to that. There's the future. The future is these other groups getting up to us, and us being in a more balanced, competitive environment. There will come a time when Chinese. There's a Toyota. Well, there's a Volkswagen plant in Chattanooga.
Yeah.
There's a Toyota plant in the small county that my daughters live. Why are those plants in the United States? Because German and Japanese labor, which kicked our ass in the 1970s by being cheap, is now more expensive than American labor.
Yep.
Okay, so you get the Chinese to the point that they're more expensive than Americans, or as expensive as Americans, and we're on a competitive playing field.
Now, we're almost out of time, but I want to leave this with a challenge. And this is a story that John and I share a lot with people. It's a challenge in how you think about the things around you, okay? There was an experiment a number of years ago. Anybody familiar with the chimpanzee and the banana experiment? Okay, for those of you that haven't heard
I talk about it a lot.
He talks about it a lot, but just in case you haven't heard this, a group of, I'm not even sure what exactly the specialty was, but they put 10
Psychologists.
Put 10 chimpanzees in a room with a ladder and a bunch of bananas.
Yeah, there was a ladder, step ladder in the middle, and there was a trap door in the middle that a single banana could be lowered through the trap door.
Right. So the chimpanzees, the banana comes down, they all go rush the ladder, they go up to get the banana, the trap door opens, and water pours down and knocks them off the step ladder.
Fire hoses.
Okay?
Cold water.
So a couple of times it gets through. They take one chimp out and introduce a new chimp in, who immediately goes... Summarize it.
Yeah, I know, but the fire hoses come down, the chimps run around. After you do that a couple of times, the chimps stop going up the ladder to try to get the banana.
Right. So they take one chimp out, bring one new chimp in. He sees stepladder, he sees banana. Ah, I'm going to get the banana. The other 9 chimps basically gather around and beat the crap out of him. Okay, because they all don't want to get hosed.
Actual study.
The actual study. What they kept doing was taking experienced chimp out and introducing new chimp in. Until eventually all 10 chimps were in the room, had never known why they shouldn't climb up the step ladder to get the banana.
All dry chimps.
Right, but they maintained the behavior pattern.
So you take another chimp out, you put it in, you go for the banana. Chimps that had never had water sprayed on them would beat the shit out of them to keep them from getting the banana. They didn't know why. It was procedure.
It was procedure. And that is what I want everybody to think about in the work life, the personal life, just everything around there, is look around how many times you're just doing things because it's the way it's done.
It's how we've always done it.
It's how we've always done it. But I will tell you that is the key to why I believe this country will succeed, is because we're that rare, almost unheard of exception in world history, is we do go, why are we not going for the banana? We actually have the inherent capability to question why we don't go for it.
America has billionaires. You know, America's history of the people in each generation that have made super amounts of money have always been people that said, why don't we go for the banana?
And then figure out a way to avoid the hoses.
And then figure out a way to avoid the hoses.
Reprogram the Kobayashi Maru. That's how you win.
Yeah, reprogram the Kobayashi Maru. The first American millionaire. Eric Flint readers might know this one. Who was the first man in America ever to be a millionaire? No. No. He figured out a way to pack and transport ice worldwide. He would ship ice from Vermont and Maine to Istanbul. He was the Iceman. Can't remember his name, but he was the first American millionaire.
Because everybody knows you can't transport ice around the world.
It's going to melt, right?
He figured out how to do it. Everybody else said that's not possible. You didn't even think that it was possible. He not only thought it was possible, he figured out how to do it.
He went for the
that
banana.
is the history of this country. That is not the history of any other country. No matter how smart and successful they may be.
Doesn't matter how old you are. It doesn't matter what you do. If you just keep your eye out for a banana, you know, and then figure out how to get it.
It was Frederick Tudor.
There you go. All right, and we're out of time. That was fun.